There was plenty to unpack in the Rings of Power finale. The jam-packed episode not only answered many of our biggest questions and revealed the true identity of Sauron, but it also set up key events that will lead to the saga of the Lord of the Rings books and movies we know and love. In this video, I have brought you the news in detail. Make sure you stick with me till the end. Without any further delay, let's get into it. What big secret was revealed in the season finale of the Rings of Power? The big reveal in the episode that eclipsed all others was that Halbrand, the supposed rightful king of the Southlands, has been Sauron all along. In the final minutes, Sauron confessed that he has been manipulating Galadriel since they first met, using her as a way to get back to Middle-earth to fight back against his enemies in the Southlands and indirectly from the land of Mordor, but also to get closer to Celebrimbor and the Elven Smiths. And as the first rings were forged, Galadriel unknowingly knew how far she's gone to aid the Dark Lord's return to power. Surely this won't come back to bite her and the elves in Season 2. It wasn't just betrayal on Sauron's mind in the finale. Using his sorcery to transport Galadriel back to the raft where they first became acquainted, Sauron made his season-long companion a surprising offer to be his queen, a dark lady stronger than the foundations of the earth, which was a surprising nod to Cate Blanchett's famous scene in Fellowship of the Ring. In the end, Galadriel rejected his proposal like any elf warrior hell-bent on slaying Sauron would. Yet for some viewers, Galadriel's decision contradicts the clear chemistry these characters share on-screen throughout the season. And once the show teased that she believed her husband Celeborn to be dead, it seemed like Galadriel-Halbrand romance plot was a foregone solution. Even after Halbrand revealed the truth, some on Twitter are still shipping Galadriel and Sauron. So, could it ever actually happen? Is there even a small part of Galadriel that wants to accept Sauron's offer despite the disastrous consequences this decision would have for Middle-earth? These were questions posted to Galadriel actor Morfydd Clark when she was caught up with the Rings of Power finale and what might be ahead for her character in Season 2. Clark revealed that she feels a tiny part of her wants to say yes, but she is now aware that tiny part of her is so powerful. Indeed, on the raft with Sauron, we see Galadriel face the same type of temptation as in the Fellowship scene where she fantasizes about accepting the ring. She said, instead of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen, not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn, temptatious as the sea, and stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. More than just a callback to the Peter Jackson movies, the Rings of Power show that Galadriel has long struggled with her dark inner side, and Sauron's long game has been to exploit that. But ultimately, Clark believes Galadriel's choice in the finale was true to who the character was and her journey so far on the show. Galadriel has been so obsessive in her search for Sauron that she's particularly wary of becoming what she hated the most. Clark said that she thinks she won't take those risks again because she thought she took such risks and it cost so much, and somehow has the idea of herself as an atomic bomb. Sauron showed that her power could be dark, so even the tiniest bit of temptation is quite alarming. Clark highlighted that even if she does harbor feelings for those she thought Halbrand was, things are far more complicated between Galadriel and the Dark Lord than a will they or won't they relationship. She further highlighted that she thinks the romance doesn't seem to cut it for them. It's cosmic and would be a Middle-earth shattering relationship should they ever enter it. When Charlie Vickers, who played Sauron, was asked the same question, he gave some insight into what the Dark Lord was thinking. Sorry to disappoint the Galadriel-Sauron shippers and the Lord of the Rings fandom, but the villain isn't all that interested, according to the actor. Vickers said that he loves the idea that people think it's romantic, but it's cool and interesting if somebody would think that, but he doesn't think it is. Vickers also said that Sauron wants Galadriel to become his queen because she's useful. As he's already shown, Sauron can accomplish his own objectives much more quickly when he has a highly regarded elf warrior to get him into places like Numenor and Eregion, where Celebrimbor lives. Vickers further explained that Sauron feels a connection to her. Since the First Age, he hasn't met many people that operate on his level, but he is on the raft pitching to her and saying, "You could be my queen," because she binds him to the light and the good. Sauron thinks with her, he can affect his designs more quickly. With her by his side, he has the ear of the elves. He has a way in. It comes from a place of selfishness. The season ended with a victorious Sauron descending the mountains that border the newly formed land of Mordor, and he seemed to be cutting a path straight to Mount Doom. It's possible he's on his way to forge the One Ring inside the volcano's fiery depths or to pay his enemies archenemy Adar a visit. Whatever he's up to, Vickers said we'll get to see what's next for Sauron pretty early on next season, and those plans don't seem to involve Galadriel anymore. Vickers also hinted at W.H. Auden's essay on good and evil in Tolkien, where he talked about how evil comes back to hope or fear or personal gain rather than affection, and Vickers thinks that's what it is with Sauron and his relationship with Galadriel here. Ultimately, if he has her on his side, he thinks he'll get what he wants faster. In the same way, he loved working for Morgoth because he got what he wanted more quickly, but when he said no to him, it was the world's end. Next up, let's talk about Elendil and Miriel's conversation in the Rings of Power. Even though the last few episodes of The Lord of the Rings of Power had some of the best and most expensive action scenes ever seen on TV, the season finale slowed things down a bit. As Middle-earth dealt with the appearance of Mount Doom, the characters were all sad about the people they lost in the Southlands War. There were a lot of surprises, including a big one about who Sauron was, but Alloyd is the most emotional episode of the series so far. During the conversation between Elendil and Miriel on board, we saw how the men of Numenor were getting ready over their trip. They felt bad about failing because they fell right into Sauron's trap. Their soldiers were killed, and their plan failed to get rid of evil. It's nice that the Rings of Power stopped building the world and allowed the characters to think about what they've learned. However, their conversation was cut shorter when they reached the shores of Numenor. Black flags flew across the city, indicating that King Tar Palantir had died. The Queen Regent's advisor, Pharazôn, will use this situation to his advantage. He has long voiced his rejection of Elendil's mission and plotted to send the Numenor men to Middle-earth as conquerors. Pharazôn's hatred of the elves indicates that Elendil and Miriel have challenges ahead of them in the next season. Before King Tar Palantir took over, the people in charge of Numenor didn't like the elves. His parents taught Tar Palantir to break from these traditions and showed his commitment by honoring the valor, by tending to the White Tree and following the ancient custom Eru Ilúvatar. But not everyone in the King's City agreed with what he said. When Elendil decided to help Galadriel sail back to Numenor, people who didn't like people from other places didn't want to help. Pharazôn is diplomatic in his manipulation of the public. By allowing Elendil to sail across the sea, he's giving himself a win-win scenario. If Elendil succeeded, the men could conquer the elves as Pharazôn had intended. Now that Elendil has failed, it casts further doubt on his leadership and relationship with Galadriel. Pharazôn will likely use this propaganda to put himself in a position of power in the coming season. Another pivotal revelation from this conversation is that Elendil truly believes that his son, Isildur, is dead. While Elendil was still grieving, he decided to remain in the Queen's service. Based on what we know about his fate from Tolkien's appendices in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Elendil will make another voyage to Middle-earth to work with the Elven King Gil-galad to wage war against Sauron. This would allow Numenor to crumble as Pharazôn's influence spreads. That concludes today's video. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving us a thumbs up, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. See you next time!